Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. Big development in the Ukraine situation, despite what could have been a major breakthrough. The first direct peace talks between Moscow and Kiev in 3 years. Neither U.S. President Trump nor Russian President Vladimir Putin will be attending Thursday's meeting. Instead, Russia is sending a team of experienced technocrats. This comes after Putin's offer on Sunday for negotiations in Istanbul without any preconditions. And the news starts now. In a decisive ruling today, the Court of Appeals has set aside last year's acquittal of former Senator Leila De Limas and her co-accused Ronnie Palisok Dayan in the long-running illegal drug trading case. The appellate court found that the Muntinlupa Regional Trial Court erred by dismissing the charges without the clear and detailed reasoning required under the Constitution. The decision revives allegations that De Limas, who was Justice Secretary from 2010 to 2015, oversaw drug operations at New Bilibid Prison. The lower court's acquittal had rested largely on the recantation of key witness Rafael Ragos. But the Court of Appeals ruled that the trial judge never properly assessed his credibility or examined the testimony of other prosecution witnesses. By declaring the original acquittal void, the justices also determined that double jeopardy protections do not apply. With no valid prior verdict, the charges can now be retried. The case is set to return to Muntinlupa Court for fresh proceedings, where prosecutors will have another opportunity to present evidence. De Limas, a vocal critic of former President Duterte's anti-drug campaign, spent nearly 6 years detained before posting bail last year. She has consistently denied all wrongdoing, calling the charges politically motivated. The Department of Justice has yet to announce its next steps. In other news tonight, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin indicated they would not attend what could be the first direct peace talks between Moscow and Kiev in 3 years today, with the Kremlin sending instead a group of experienced technocrats. Now, to recall, Putin on Sunday proposed direct negotiations with Ukraine in Istanbul on Thursday without any preconditions. Late on Wednesday, the Kremlin said the delegation would include Presidential Advisor Vladimir Medinsky and Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin, but Putin's name was not on the list.
Но я лишь могу еще раз подтвердить.
But I can confirm once again that everything the president said in his statement on May 11th is still relevant. The Russian delegation will in fact wait for the Ukrainian delegation in Istanbul on Thursday, May 15th. That is tomorrow.
After the Kremlin's delegation announcement, a U.S. official said Trump, who is on a three-nation tour of the Middle East, would not attend. The U.S. leader had said earlier that he was considering the option to participate. While Putin had never confirmed he would attend in person, the absence of the Russian and U.S. presidents lowers the expectations for a major breakthrough in the war that Russia started in February 2022.
It is not clear if Trump will actually exercise peace through strength. It is clear that he is losing patience with Putin, and it is clear that he believes that Putin wants too much. Putin wants to destroy Ukraine as an independent state. Putin wants to push United States and NATO out of Eastern Europe all the way to the borders of '97. Putin wants Europe to take his right to the sphere of influence in Eastern Europe again seriously. None of these conditions can be met.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Ankara for the critical talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Speaking to reporters, Zelensky expressed doubts about the authority of the Russian delegation present for the negotiations.
The level of the Russian delegation is not known officially to me, but from what we see, it looks more like it's on a decorative level. We will think about what we do next, what our next steps will be after the talks with President Erdogan. I think we will have a couple of hours for important talks, for very important decisions. We need to understand what kind of level the Russian delegation is, and what mandate they have and whether they can make any decisions. Because we all know who makes decisions in Russia.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated ahead of the NATO foreign ministers meeting in Turkey that there's no military solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
There is no military solution to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. This war is going to end not through a military solution, but through a diplomatic one. And the sooner an agreement can be reached on ending this war, the less people will die and the less destruction there will be.
All right, let's break down a big development from yesterday. President Trump made headlines by meeting Syria's new interim leader, Abu Muhammad al-Lani. Now, this is the first time a U.S. president has sat down with a Syrian leader in 25 years. Take a look. The meeting was actually a bit of a virtual summit with Turkey's President Erdogan and Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman joining in via video conference. It all happened right before a bigger gathering of Gulf leaders in Saudi Arabia. This comes on the heels of President Trump's big announcement that the U.S. is lifting sanctions on Damascus. Remember Bashar al-Assad? Well, he was ousted back in December, and Trump's move is seen as a major shift. Here's what President Trump had to say.
There's a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria. They've had their share of travesty, war, killing, many years. That's why my administration has already taken the first steps toward restoring normal relations between the United States and Syria for the first time in more than a decade.
Under Assad, Syria was isolated. They were at odds with Israel, close to Iran and Russia, and had a rocky relationship with the West. But now, President Trump says he's changing course, lifting those tough sanctions after some serious talks with allies like Turkey and Saudi Arabia.
I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
Now, while in Riyadh, Trump also didn't hold back on Iran, calling them the most destructive force in the region and reiterating his vow to stop them from getting a nuclear weapon.
I want to make a deal with Iran. If I can make a deal with Iran, I'll be very happy if we're going to make your region and the world a safer place. But if Iran's leadership rejects this olive branch and continues to attack their neighbors, then we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure, drive Iranian oil exports to zero like I did before. If you know that, they were a virtually bankrupt country because of what I did. They had no money for terror. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah.
Back in Syria, there were celebrations as people took to the streets, calling the end of sanctions a turning point for stability.
Today, I am not only celebrating the lifting of sanctions on Syria, our joy lies in the sincere brotherhood and the return of fervent feelings among the people of the region, its kings, princes, and presidents. President Trump thankfully responded to this love. The decision to lift the sanctions was a historic, courageous decision that alleviated the suffering of the people, helped in their renaissance, and laid the foundations for stability in the region.
So with sanctions gone and diplomacy back on the table, U.S.-Syria relations are definitely entering a new phase, but with Iran still a major concern, and questions about who's really running the show in post-Assad Syria. This is a story we'll be keeping a close eye on. In the U.S., even though summer is still a few weeks away, people in parts of Texas are already feeling the heat in a big way, with temperatures soaring to record levels. Just yesterday afternoon, Austin hit a daily record high of 98 degrees Fahrenheit. To put that in perspective, the previous record for May 14th was 96 degrees, set way back in 2003. So what's behind this early heat wave? Well, according to Dev Niyogi, a professor of Earth and Planetary Sciences at the University of Texas at Austin, it's a combination of factors.
We are seeing some extremely hot temperatures, and these are possibly going to be record-breaking because we have not had 105 or 100 plus this early into the season for a while. But it's likely happening because we have a number of factors going in. There is a low pressure system east of us, a low pressure system west of us. So we have this beautiful high pressure dome which is giving us brilliant blue skies, but it is also a way that all the radiation, the heat is coming our way, and we have a ground surface which is dry because of the drought, and it is already heating up quite a bit. And then we have the winds coming from south, which is like having a heater turned towards you when you actually want something cooler your way. And so this combination of no clouds, a combination of really dry landscape, and the winds coming from south are making into a baking oven for this area. Now, why this is happening and whether this is going to continue being a pattern is up for research at this time. What we do know that cities are growing. What we do know that cities are going to get hotter as we have this urban heat island adding to the complexity of the heat we have. So communities and citizens will have more heat if our way of life is continuing as we have with more urbanization, and if we don't have more trees or shade and other factors helping us to mellow that part.
And it's not just numbers on a chart. People are really feeling it. Here's what some Texans had to say.
It is super hot. Yeah, it's a little early for it. You know, we usually get these temperatures in June, July, and August, not in May, beginning of May even. It's a lot.
I am used to the heat. I'm actually used to the heat from walking from the car into the mall and feeling like my flip-flops are about to melt to the asphalt.
I think climate change is something that definitely affects it. We're seeing trends and the science is backing it up, so people need to see the effects that are currently happening to us finally after all this time, and they can see what is able to help the planet and see what they can do to help this so it doesn't keep happening over and over again.
So I think it's going to continuously get warmer and warmer until we melt off the face of the earth, unfortunately. But I can't personally do anything about it. So I am at Barton Springs, cooling down.
The National Weather Service has issued an extreme weather heat warning for much of south central Texas, and that remains in effect through tonight. In western Maryland, they had some serious flooding. Roads were completely underwater. Even a firehouse in Western Port got water inside. Video from the Potomac Fire Company 2 showed first responders wading through flooded streets and water all over the fire station floor. Drone video showed flooded streets of Western Port. Allegheny County was one of the worst affected areas in Maryland, with the town of Western Port particularly hard hit. Officials say the Emergency Operations Center is stepping up to help out. Meanwhile, in northern Minnesota, it's still battling three big wildfires. The largest, the Jenkins Creek Fire, has exploded to over 20,000 acres, while the Camp House blaze had charred nearly 12,000 acres and destroyed more than 140 buildings. And the Munger Shaw Fire covers about 1,300 acres. A break in the weather is on the way, with rain expected later Wednesday and Thursday to help firefighters gain the upper hand. Up north in Manitoba, Canada, dramatic footage captured a wildfire's fury as an eyewitness drove through the flames. Now, those fires have already claimed 2 lives in the Lac du Bonnet area and forced almost 1,000 residents to evacuate, raising fears of a brutal season ahead. The issue of violence against women in Mexico has taken a particularly horrifying turn. A beauty influencer was murdered while live streaming to her followers, a crime that authorities are investigating as a femicide. We look at the details surrounding the death of Valeria Marquez and the ongoing crisis in Mexico.
A Mexican beauty influencer was shot and killed during a TikTok live stream on Tuesday. The prosecutors of Mexico's Jalisco state says 23-year-old Valeria Marquez was killed at the beauty salon where she worked in the city of Zapopan. Just seconds before, Marquez was seen live on TikTok holding a stuffed toy and saying, "They're coming." A voice then called, "Hey, Vale," meaning "Hey, okay?" Which she replied yes, then muted the stream. Moments later, she was shot. Someone grabbed her phone, briefly showing their face on the live stream before it ended. The prosecutor's office did not name a suspect. Marquez had nearly 200,000 followers across Instagram and TikTok. She had said earlier on the live stream that someone came to the salon when she was not there with an expensive gift to deliver to her. She appeared concerned and said she was not planning to wait for the person to come back. The Jalisco State Prosecutor said in a statement on Tuesday that her death is being investigated as femicide, the killing of women, all girls based on gender. Mexico, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Bolivia share the fourth highest femicide rates in Latin America and the Caribbean, with 1.3 deaths per 100,000 women in 2023, according to the UN.
Shocking video footage has emerged from Paris showing a masked gang's audacious attempt to kidnap the daughter of a French cryptocurrency figure. The broad daylight attack was ultimately foiled by the courageous actions of a nearby shop owner armed with a fire extinguisher. Take a look.
French prosecutors are investigating after a masked gang tried to kidnap the daughter of a crypto businessman in Paris on Tuesday. The graphic video of the attack was filmed by an onlooker and widely shared on social media. It shows 3 masked men wrestling with 2 people on the ground as a getaway van idles nearby. A shop owner is seen intervening, rushing at the attackers with a fire extinguisher. After the extended physical struggle, the attackers eventually give up and drive off. The shop owner, who gave his name only as Nabil, is being hailed as a hero.
I rushed over with that object, not knowing exactly what I was going to do with it, but I feel like it ended the altercation, so I achieved my goal.
The kidnapping target was identified by local media as the daughter of the CEO of a platform for buying cryptocurrencies, who was with her partner at the time. The Paris prosecutor's office said a probe had been opened into the attempted kidnapping and would be conducted by an organized crime unit. It's at least the 3rd violent attack targeting wealthy crypto players and their families in recent months. In January, one of the co-founders of French crypto company Ledger was kidnapped for ransom along with his wife. He lost a finger before being rescued. And in early May, the father of a French crypto player was kidnapped for ransom and was rescued by police days later, also missing a finger.
Day 3 of testimony has wrapped up in the federal trial where Sean Diddy Combs faces serious charges including racketeering and sex trafficking. Casey Ventura, the R&B singer and Combs' former girlfriend, returned to the witness stand for a second day, offering even more explicit and emotional details about their relationship and the alleged abuse she endured. Now, Ventura recounted the now infamous 2016 hotel incident, describing how a violent encounter escalated into Combs beating her as she tried to escape. Now, she told the court that the fight began during what she called a freak-off, a term for the drug and sex-fueled parties Combs allegedly orchestrated. Prosecutors presented the photos they say show the aftermath, including damage from a vase that Combs allegedly threw at her during the attack. Her testimony went further, describing how these parties eventually turned into what she called pornography shoots. Now, Ventura claimed Combs would set up video equipment to record the encounters, allegedly using the footage to intimidate and blackmail her. Here's more.
Sean Diddy Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassandra Ventura, was back on the stand Wednesday in his sex trafficking and racketeering trial. She told jurors in Manhattan federal court that Combs raped her in 2018 after they ended their relationship. She also said that when they were together, Combs beat her during sex parties he organized known as freak-offs, and that he threatened to ruin her career by releasing videos of her participating in them. Ventura testified that, quote, he would grab me up, push me down, hit me in the side of the head, and kick me. Earlier this week, jurors saw a 2016 surveillance video from the hallway of a Los Angeles hotel, where a towel-clad Combs threw Ventura to the ground and began to kick her. Ventura said the video was taken after a freak-off where Combs gave her a black eye. Combs has since apologized for the video, and Ventura said that he agreed to a $20 million settlement to end her civil lawsuit against him in 2023. Prosecutors on Wednesday also showed jurors 7 still photos of Ventura and various escorts that were taken from videos of the freak-offs. One juror swallowed hard upon seeing one image, and another jerked his head back. The photos were not shown to spectators or the press. Ventura, who is an R&B singer known as Cassie, spent more than a decade with Combs in a relationship she said was once loving but deteriorated. Combs has pleaded not guilty to 5 felony counts of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The current federal trial is expected to take up to 2 months, and if convicted on all counts, the Bad Boy Records founder would face a minimum 15 years in prison and could face life behind bars.
All flights in and out of one of the 2 airports serving the Belgian capital of Brussels were suspended for several hours following reports of a bomb threat on board a Ryanair flight. Now, flights were canceled after a police boarded the Ryanair plane en route from Portugal to examine the bomb threat. The plane landed at Charleroi Airport and a security perimeter was set up around it while the police investigation took place. Footage broadcast by Belgian TV station RTL showed police vehicles surrounding the Ryanair plane on the tarmac while passengers were led off the aircraft and into a shuttle bus. The all clear was later given, allowing flights from Charleroi to resume. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. APEC warns exports in its 21-member Asia-Pacific region will grow just 0.4% this year, down from 5.7% last year, due to U.S. tariffs and trade tensions.
Trade in the Asia-Pacific will barely grow this year amid global tariff tensions. That was the warning Thursday from the 21-member Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Bloc. It predicted exports around the region would rise just 0.4% this year, compared with 5.7% last year. The group cut its growth forecast for 2025 to 2.6% from 3.3% earlier. It cited declining demand for consumer goods and other products and rising uncertainty over what tariffs would mean for trade. The warning came at a meeting of the bloc's trade representatives on the South Korean island of Jeju. APEC Policy Support Unit Director Carlos Kuriyama spoke to the media.
Higher tariffs, retaliatory measures, suspension or elimination of benefits or procedures facilitating trade. We have heard about an increase of non-tariff measures affecting trade. And all of this, unfortunately, is not helping business, because what they are doing is to add unprecedented levels of policy uncertainty. This is also eroding investors' confidence, weakening demand.
However, investors were offered a glimmer of hope by one encounter on the sidelines of the event. US Trade Representative Jameson Greer reportedly met his Chinese counterpart. That raised hopes of more progress, coming just days after the pair agreed to slash tariffs during talks in Switzerland. Over the next 2 days, APEC members will discuss issues including possible reform of the World Trade Organization. The Trump administration views the WTO as guilty of enabling China to gain an unfair advantage in trade. Washington has recently moved to pause funding for the organization as a result.
All right, so picture this: President Macron, German Chancellor Merz, and British Prime Minister Starmer, all on a train heading to Kiev. Sounds like the start of a political thriller, right? Well, it's turned into a bit of a social media circus. A video surfaced and it's sparking some wild accusations. See that crumpled white thing? Some folks online are claiming it's a bag of cocaine. Seriously, and this rumor even got the attention of Russia's Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Maria Zakharova. As in the joke, a Frenchman, an Englishman, and a German boarded the train and got high. Apparently so much so that they forgot to remove the accessories, a bag and a spoon, before the arrival of the journalists. But Macron's office is hitting back hard, calling it fake news. They say it's a tissue for blowing your nose. They're accusing France's enemies both at home and abroad of spreading this disinformation. When European unity becomes inconvenient, disinformation goes so far as to make a simple tissue look like drugs. They're also warning everyone to stay vigilant against manipulation. And Germany's weighing in too, calling the claim absurd. They're backing up the tissue story, saying it's just that, a tissue. They also added that many are trying to influence opinions and that enemies of democracy are trying to weaken unity. Now, this whole thing comes as France is stepping up its fight against online rumors, especially those linked to Russia. They're also worried about American alt-right influence. The French foreign minister even said their public debate is being bombarded with Russian propaganda. So a tissue turns into a drug scandal, and it's a perfect example of the online information war we're dealing with. The question is, who do you believe? Now get ready for some seriously small but mighty innovation out of MIT. Engineers there have just unveiled a hopping robot that's no bigger than your thumb, but don't let its size fool you. This tiny titan can tackle tough terrain and even haul heavy stuff, opening up some exciting possibilities for everything from disaster relief to exploring places we've never been before. Take a look.
We recently developed an extremely tiny hopping robot that's about the size of an AirPod case and weighs less than a paperclip. The great things about this robot is that it can traverse various terrain. That's because the controller is generalized enough, so as long as the robot doesn't slip, the controller should be able to handle most surfaces. Another great feature is that the hopping offers 10 times higher payload capacity compared to flying. Unlike a flying robot, where the flapping wing must consistently support the payload's weight, this hopping device recycles energy, converting kinetic energy to potential energy and back again. That means we only need a small amount of thrust to carry a significantly heavier payload. This extra payload capacity allowed us to potentially implement sensor, battery, and power electronics on board.
Tom Cruise brought his megawatt charm to the Cannes Film Festival. Now everyone was buzzing because this might just be the last time we see Tom Cruise in the franchise. Ever the superstar, Tom spent time greeting fans who had been soaking up the sun for hours just to catch a glimpse of him. Then he joined his awesome Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning co-stars, the fantastic Haley Atwell, Pom Klementif, Greg Tarzan Davis, Angela Bassett, Isai Morales, and Hannah Waddingham. They were all smiles, posing for photos and even snapping some selfies before heading into the beautifully red Grand Lumiere Theater. And guess who else graced the Cannes premiere? The amazing Zoe Saldana, the radiant Eva Longoria, the always stylish Andy McDowell in a cool suit, and even Cannes jury member Halle Berry. What a star-studded night. Now, a quick NBA update. The Minnesota Timberwolves are heading to the Western Conference Finals after beating the Golden State Warriors 121-110 in Game 5. Now, Julius Randle led the way with 29 points, and Anthony Edwards had 22 points and 12 assists. The Warriors, without the injured Stephen Curry, were led by Brandon Podziemski, 28 points. Minnesota now waits for the winner of the Thunder Nuggets series.
Yeah, I mean, we know what our recipe for success is. You know, we know what that means for us. You know, coming into the playoffs, our team talked a lot about the selflessness that was needed for it to be able to be anybody's night, and that every series is different, every night is going to be different, and just stay ready. You know, Dante was huge for us tonight, big spark off the bench. You know, we just talked about the balance with our veterans in particular. Rudy had, you know, probably his most impactful offensive night tonight. But those guys kept guarding and they kept doing everything else, even when the ball wasn't coming their way, and you know, shots were not falling or they were not getting shots. So, you know, that's all credit to our guys. You know, they made this a point of emphasis. This is what we had to have. So.
Yeah, I just try to do my best to read the game the best way I can. They threw different coverages at us, you know, all series long, and our ability to adjust on the fly and do what the game was, calling for us to do as, everybody on the team, each individual. It was good. So, whenever we need a basket, coach puts me in great spots to do that. And if he needs me to play make, he puts me in great spots to do that as well. So, it's whatever the team needs in the moment.
Well, first of all, congrats to the Wolves. They were fantastic. Had a great series, beating us 4 games straight after that first one.
Well, I think a lot of it was the things that we could control that we weren't controlling. Big emphasis was taken away the three-point line. They shot a good percentage, and I think made maybe 6 or 8 at halftime. And so if we just took those away, especially for the role guys, Conley, DiVincenzo, McDaniels, took away those kind of things early for them, it puts a not a timidness in their mind, but as the game gets closer and the game gets later in the game, those shots that didn't go in early, maybe they're hesitant to shoot them, or they're rushing them because they want to make them.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.